If you bend down, that is not surrender, that's good exercise.
Very practical.
If you declare, I have surrendered,
Conscious practice. What's conscious? This is Vish, and today I'll be responding to Sadhguru's video on what is surrender. My name is Vish, I'm an aspiring yogi, love all things meditation, wisdom, and yoga based. Super grateful to have you watching this with me. What is surrender? That is a question I've heard from a lot of different spiritual teachers. So I'm very curious what Sadhguru will say about this. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
Sadhguru, when I am into the height of my emotions, surrender seems to be the nearest, sweetest thing and possible. When so many other things work for me, it goes off out of my vision. Can I consciously do the Saranagati?
Seems kind of timid, the questioner.
don't try to surrender, because what will you surrender? What is it that you're going to surrender? If you bend down, that is not surrender, that's good exercise.
Very practical.
If you declare, I have surrendered, that's a horrible ego. So how will you surrender? What will you surrender? What have you got to surrender, first of all? It is out of a certain realization that surrender happens. It's when you see that… See, these words are can be very misleading, because you have always been taught self-worth, self-esteem, confidence, isn't it? These are the valuable things to make your life. Surrender is against all these things. Only when you're worthless, you can surrender, please see. If you have self-worth, self-esteem, confidence, how to surrender? But can you live without confidence? Can you live without self-esteem or some sense of self-worth? Right now, no.
I would have said yes.
I have no sense of self-esteem or self-worth. That's why any moment I'm willing to… if necessary, next moment I'm willing to go, because I don't think this is worth anything. Personally, I don't think this is worth anything, keeping this on. But because it seems to be useful for many lives around us, we keep this going. But there is no self-worth, because the sense of self itself is gone, so where is the worth? Self is not worth anything. And to that which is not worth anything, if you add esteem, that's lots of trouble. And because of this esteem, this worthless thing, if it becomes confident, that's real trouble. But for the sake of survival, because people believed, people only believed, it's not true. People believed unless you believe in yourself, you cannot survive. It's not true. It's not true in an essential way. But people believe that and it's become true for them. Because whatever you believe, If you add sufficient focus and emotion to it, it becomes real, you know. It becomes very real. All kinds of nonsensical belief systems around the world have become absolutely real for lots of people. Not for a small number of people, for a vast majority of population, it's become real. They believe it and it is so. So, because of belief, these things have become real. But whatever you believe and whatever you empower with your thoughts and your emotions has no existential basis. When you talk surrender, you're talking about passing from the limitations of one dimension to another. You knocked your head on the wall sufficiently, now you understand that unless you become like thin air, you will not pass. When you have realized this, that in your present form you will never pass, when you realize this, see, suppose you're imprisoned and the doors are thick and nothing happens, you can't go. There is a gutter, filthy gutter. If you crawl through this filth, you can get out to freedom. Will you choose to crawl through the filth or no? You will, right? Yes? If that's the route to freedom, through the most horrible filth you will crawl. It will go into your nostrils and your mouth and everywhere, but it doesn't matter. It leads you to freedom, so you will crawl through filth. That's surrender. That's surrender because you have realized you can't cross the prison wall standing. That is why you're crawling. So surrender is a certain realization that you realize in your present form, you cannot pass the gate. So you find a more intelligent way to pass. That will not come by cultivation. That will come only by a certain realization, either out of your intelligence or because life has ground you sufficiently, or that you're insane enough to fall in love in an unbridled way, not in a conditional way, not in a sensible way, not in a nice way, in an insane way. Insane, like a Ramakrishna or a Mirabai or a Kamahadevi. There have been any number, these are the known names, there have been any number of them who are insane. They're not sane, they're not nice, not at all nice, I want you to know. But they're fantastic. That which is fantastic need not be nice.
That's interesting.
Usually it's not nice.
I will have to say, this was definitely a deep one. It was deep. I love the things that Sadhguru talked about, the wisdom nuggets that he sprinkled with this response. And I think for those of you watching, it's an understandable thing to feel, which is that he didn't answer the question directly, maybe, because there's a lot of different things being said. But what I will say with this approach, and that's just from me probably seeing hundreds of his videos at this point, is that a couple of things. First off, he likes to, or tries to, provide you towards a better question, because sometimes the questions we ask in general are not the most conscious. So he kind of responds with other questions at times, not directly, but You'll get what I'm saying. Secondly, he sometimes takes the approach of giving you an answer to a question that you didn't even know you had, but that is more important again. So it's kind of similar in the boat. So yeah, I think that's super, super important. And sometimes his responses can be so profound, you might just get lost or you might just not be able to digest it. So for those of you who are watching, I do want to encourage you all to not dismiss it immediately and be like, he's not answering the question. And I'll tell you, because he usually does, but it's just a different way of answering. So now with regards to this exact topic of surrender, like I said before the video, it's definitely something that's talked about quite a bit in the spiritual space. And from what I know about it, it's really just about kind of giving yourself up. That might sound a bit on the negative side, and it's like a war, like you're losing, but I think that's just because we tend to associate it with that, and that's why we have a negative connotation towards surrender. But as he says, it's actually a very beautiful process. It's in a way of dissolving what is considered that self, as he says, with self-esteem, self-confidence, and all these selves, right? The self itself is a very simple, just false sense of who you are. It's the accumulation of reactionary thoughts, feelings, events, things that really just are picked up by you karmically. So you think that's you, but again, this goes on to the deeper spiritual question of who are you really? Who am I? Supposedly a question that Ramana Maharishi got enlightened by just continuously asking himself that question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And then essentially the approach here is to realize who you're not. And that's essentially the dissolving of that self. So that is super important, because at the end, that is what the surrendering is. It's just to give yourself up unconditionally. Now, I know that might sound a little maybe esoteric and out there, but it's a very practical thing if you can truly realize it, because a lot of the times the way we act is actually just really a reactionary, impulsive response that is unconscious because of the accumulated impressions that are just on us. And so we're constantly in this compulsive state. So by learning to surrender ourselves, dissolve ourselves, we're able to now actually create that space between what is quote unquote the I and then the self, and then act more consciously and respond instead of react. So it is a beautiful practice. I would love to hear what you all think of surrender. Did you have some different views on this? As I said, it was a little deep and maybe a little confusing even for me, but still appreciate the wisdom that Sadhguru always just beautifully shares. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your views are again in the comments down below. If you have any other video reaction requests, topics, or guests that you want to see on the show, you can also comment down below. With that, make this a great day. Take this joyful and stay conscious. Ecstasy.